Some people walk into crowded rooms already feeling tired before a single conversation even begins. They smile, nod, laugh at the right moments, and from the outside they seem completely normal, social, even relaxed. But internally, something very different is happening. Their attention is splitting in every direction at once. The noise feels heavier than it should. Every conversation demands energy. Every face, every shift in tone, every movement in the room quietly pulls at their nervous system until being present starts to feel exhausting. And the confusing part is that they do not actually hate people. In fact, many of them love deep conversations, quiet connection, and meaningful emotional closeness. Put them in a calm room with one person they trust, and they come alive. They listen deeply, notice small emotions, and make others feel genuinely understood. But large groups create something entirely different. Crowds overload them emotionally. Too many voices, too many emotional signals, too many invisible things happening all at once. What drains them is not social interaction itself, but the constant stimulation their nervous system cannot stop processing. After a while, they begin searching for exits, checking their phone just to create a small emotional break, wondering how long they need to stay before leaving feels acceptable. And when they finally get home, they often feel guilty for being so exhausted when nothing happened. But something did happen. Their nervous system spent hours carrying more emotional input than most people realize exists. This is why crowded places can feel strangely lonely even when surrounded by people. The body stays alert instead of relaxed, observant instead of connected. And over time, many emotionally sensitive people begin believing something is wrong with them for needing silence afterward. But needing quiet does not mean someone is antisocial or broken. Sometimes it simply means their nervous system feels everything more deeply than the environment was designed to hold. Some people do not walk into a room and simply see people. They walk in and immediately begin absorbing everything underneath the surface. The couple standing near the corner who seem fine, but are clearly angry with each other. The laugh that sounds slightly forced. The silence that lasts half a second too long before someone answers. The person smiling while their eyes look exhausted. None of this is intentional. They are not trying to analyze everyone around them. Their nervous system simply notices emotional shifts automatically before conscious thought even has time to catch up. Emotionally sensitive people often spend their entire lives collecting emotional information without realizing how much energy it costs them. Every facial expression becomes data. Every change in tone becomes data. Every awkward pause, every emotional undercurrent, every subtle tension inside a room gets picked up and processed constantly in the background. Most people can tune these things out naturally, but emotionally hyper-aware nervous systems often cannot. The monitoring never fully stops. And this is why crowded environments become so exhausting. In a quiet one-on-one conversation, emotional information moves slowly and clearly. There is space to process, connect, and feel emotionally present. But inside a crowded room, the nervous system suddenly has dozens of emotional signals competing for attention at the same time. Multiple conversations, multiple moods, multiple social dynamics, all happening simultaneously. The brain begins scanning continuously, trying to read the emotional atmosphere before anything unpredictable happens. Over time, this creates a form of invisible fatigue most people cannot see from the outside. Someone may appear calm and socially functional, while internally their nervous system is operating at full capacity. They are not just talking to people, they are monitoring reactions, tracking tension, adjusting behavior, reading emotional shifts, and subconsciously preparing for discomfort before it even arrives. This constant emotional processing drains enormous amounts of energy. And because nothing dramatic seems to happen externally, emotionally sensitive people often blame themselves for feeling overwhelmed afterward. They tell themselves they are weak, antisocial, awkward, or too sensitive. But the exhaustion is real. The brain is treating emotional information the same way it would treat possible danger signals. It stays alert because somewhere earlier in life, paying attention to emotional shifts mattered. The nervous system learned that tone changes, silence, facial expressions, or tension could predict conflict, rejection, or emotional instability. So now it scans automatically, even in environments that are objectively safe. This is why some people leave social gatherings feeling completely emptied out, despite spending the entire night appearing fine. Their body was never resting inside the room. It was working constantly behind the scenes, trying to process and manage an overwhelming amount of emotional input all at once. And understanding this changes the story completely. The exhaustion is not weakness. It is the cost of a nervous system that notices more than most people ever realize exists. For many emotionally sensitive people, the habit of reading rooms did not begin in crowded spaces. It began much earlier, inside the emotional atmosphere of childhood. Long before they ever walked into parties, meetings, or busy social gatherings, they were already learning how to monitor environments carefully. In some homes, emotional tension could appear suddenly and without warning. A small shift in tone, the sound of a door closing, a silence at the dinner table, or the expression on someone's face could completely change the emotional safety of the room. Children raised in emotionally unpredictable environments often learned very quickly that paying attention was not optional. It was survival. They became emotionally observant because their nervous system believed it needed to stay alert in order to remain safe, accepted, or prepared for what might happen next. Over time, this constant monitoring stopped feeling like effort and became automatic. The child no longer consciously thought, "I need to read the room." Their body simply learned to scan every environment the moment they entered it. Facial expressions, energy shifts, tension between people, sudden silence, emotional withdrawal, irritation hidden beneath politeness, all of it became information the nervous system collected instantly and involuntarily. And because these patterns develop so early, many people grow into adulthood believing this level of vigilance is simply part of their personality. They describe themselves as highly observant, overly sensitive, or easily overwhelmed without realizing their nervous system was trained this way by repeated emotional unpredictability. This is why crowded places can feel strangely threatening even when nothing objectively dangerous is happening. A crowd presents the nervous system with too many emotional variables at once, too many faces to read, too many conversations to monitor, too many subtle shifts happening simultaneously. For a nervous system already conditioned to scan for emotional danger, this becomes exhausting very quickly. The body reacts as if something important could happen at any moment, even when the mind knows the environment is safe. And because the scanning process happens automatically, emotionally sensitive people often do not realize how much invisible work their brain is performing until they leave completely drained afterward. They wonder why social situations cost them so much energy when other people seem unaffected. But the difference is not weakness. The difference is that their nervous system is processing every room through a survival system built years earlier. What once protected them inside emotionally unstable environments now continues operating inside ordinary social situations. The body still prepares for tension before tension appears. It still searches for emotional shifts before anything has actually gone wrong. And carrying that level of vigilance across an entire crowded room creates a form of exhaustion that is both emotional and physical. Understanding this changes something important. It replaces shame with context. The goal is not to judge yourself for struggling in crowds, but to recognize that your nervous system learned these patterns for a reason. You were not born broken or socially defective. You adapted intelligently to environments that taught you staying emotionally alert was necessary. And even though those environments may no longer exist, the body often continues protecting you long after the danger has passed. For many emotionally sensitive people, social interaction begins long before they ever arrive. It starts quietly in the mind during the drive there, while getting dressed, or even hours before leaving home. They rehearse possible conversations, imagine how they should greet people, think about what expression to wear when entering the room, and prepare themselves for situations most others move through naturally. Nobody asked them to do this. The preparation happens automatically because walking into a crowded environment without a mental script feels strangely unsafe. And once they arrive, another exhausting process begins. Socializing slowly turns into performance instead of connection. They monitor themselves constantly in real time. Am I making enough eye contact? Did that response sound normal? Am I talking too much? Not enough? Was that pause awkward? Should I smile more? Their attention splits between participating in the conversation and analyzing how they are being perceived inside it. At the same time, they are still absorbing the emotional atmosphere around them, reading expressions, tone shifts, reactions, and subtle tension from everyone else in the room. The nervous system never fully relaxes. It keeps adjusting, performing, monitoring, and protecting. And because they have practiced this masking for so long, most people around them never notice anything is wrong. They appear calm, friendly, socially capable, even confident. But internally, the experience often feels deeply isolating. Because while everyone else seems emotionally present in the room, part of them remains outside of it, watching themselves perform participation instead of fully living it. This creates one of the loneliest emotional experiences a person can carry, feeling completely alone while surrounded by people. Not physically alone, emotionally disconnected. They laugh at the right moments without fully feeling the laughter. They ask questions while secretly too overwhelmed to absorb the answers. Conversations pass through them without landing emotionally, because so much energy is being spent maintaining the performance itself. And afterward, when the social event ends, many emotionally sensitive people are left with a strange emptiness they struggle to explain. They were around people for hours, yet somehow feel more disconnected than before they arrived. This is because emotional masking creates distance not only from other people, but from the self. The nervous system becomes so focused on managing the environment that genuine presence quietly disappears. And over time, many people begin believing this exhaustion means they are socially flawed or incapable of connection. But the truth is often the opposite. Emotionally sensitive people are usually capable of very deep connection when they feel safe enough to stop monitoring themselves. The problem is not that they do not care about people. The problem is that crowded environments demand so much emotional management that real connection becomes difficult to reach. Beneath the performance is not emptiness, but a nervous system working constantly to protect itself while longing at the same time to finally feel fully present with someone. There is a very specific kind of relief emotionally sensitive people feel the moment they finally leave a crowded space and close the door behind them. The noise still exists somewhere outside. People are still talking, music is still playing, but suddenly none of it is touching their nervous system anymore, and something inside their body slowly releases. Not dramatically, just quietly, like a breath that has been held for hours finally letting go. Many people misunderstand this need for solitude and assume it means avoidance, antisocial behavior, or emotional weakness. But for emotionally overwhelmed nervous systems, solitude is not rejection of people, it is recovery. Quiet environments allow the constant scanning to stop for the first time all day. No more monitoring expressions, no more tracking tension, no more preparing for emotional shifts that may never come. Silence becomes relief because the nervous system no longer has to remain alert. For some people, solitude is the only place where their body fully understands it is safe enough to rest. This is why emotionally sensitive people are often misunderstood. The world tends to reward those who can move easily through loud environments, large social circles, and nonstop stimulation. But sensitivity was never the absence of strength. In many cases, it is actually the capacity to feel more deeply than the environment around you knows how to hold. The same person who feels overwhelmed in crowds is often the person who makes others feel deeply understood in quiet spaces. Sit them beside one trusted person, and suddenly everything changes. The monitoring softens. The performance disappears. Their attention becomes genuine presence. They listen carefully, notice emotions others miss, and create conversations that feel safe, honest, and emotionally real. Sensitivity creates empathy, emotional intelligence, and depth of connection that many people spend their entire lives searching for. The problem was never emotional depth itself. The problem was being placed repeatedly inside environments that overloaded it. Crowded spaces force emotionally aware nervous systems to process too much information at once, until connection becomes impossible and exhaustion takes over. But in calm, emotionally safe spaces, that same nervous system becomes something beautiful. It creates warmth, insight, compassion, and the rare ability to truly make another person feel seen. This is why needing recovery after crowds is not a personal failure. It is not proof that something is wrong with you. It is simply the reality of carrying a nervous system that notices more, feels more, and processes more than most people realize exists. And maybe the healing begins when you stop judging yourself for that. When you stop calling your sensitivity weakness and start recognizing it as a form of emotional depth that was never meant for constant noise, you were not failing to belong in those crowded rooms. You were built for connection that asks for honesty instead of performance, depth instead of stimulation, and safety instead of survival.